America's longest war is over, but why did the U.S. pull its troops out of Afghanistan? President Biden says it's to shift priorities to meet the China challenge. The Taliban describes the Chinese Communist Party as an old friend and says it hopes to foster even stronger relations. Another of China's friendly relationships is deepening too. Military leaders from Burma, also known as Myanmar, invited a Chinese representative to visit for the first time since the country's coup earlier this year. And one of China's largest real estate companies is deep in debt to the tune of $300 billion. But if the company goes bankrupt, it would send shockwaves through China's economy. Welcome to China in Focus. I'm Tiffany Meyer. The U.S.'s longest war is now over. President Biden explained Tuesday why he pulled American troops out of Afghanistan. He says it had to do with shifting priorities to meet the China challenge.
We're engaged in a serious competition with China. We're confronted with cyber attacks and nuclear proliferation. We have to shore up America's competitiveness to meet these new challenges in the competition for the 21st century. And there's nothing China or Russia would rather have, would want more in this competition in the United States to be bogged down another decade in Afghanistan.
Biden says the U.S. no longer had a national interest in Afghanistan.
That's because we had no vital interest in Afghanistan other than to prevent an attack on America's homeland and our friends. And that's true today. We succeeded in what we set out to do in Afghanistan over a decade ago.
Monday marks the day of the U.S.'s official end to the war in Afghanistan that started 20 years ago. It looks like Communist China just found itself a new ally, the Taliban. Here's what the Taliban spokesman told Chinese state-run TV station CGTN.
China is a very important and strong country in our neighborhood, and we have had a very positive and good relations with China in the past. We want to make these relations even stronger. On the government level, we look forward to building a very strong relationship with China.
The spokesman said the Taliban hopes China will back them economically. That's including investments in various exports to help Afghanistan's development. In July, Chinese officials hosted the chief of the Taliban's political office and said the world should guide and support the country as it transitions into power. Since then, Chinese media has been suggesting the idea that Beijing may recognize the Taliban as Afghanistan's legitimate ruler. But the Taliban seems to have changed very little since its last stint in power. An Afghan citizen told the Epoch Times that he knows of 3 Afghan citizens that have already been tortured. This comes as growing evidence emerges of Taliban killings, detentions, threats, and intimidation. Now we turn to Southeast Asia. A Chinese diplomat has wrapped up a week-long visit to Burma, also known as Myanmar. The trip marked the first time that Burma's military leaders invited a Chinese representative since the country's coup earlier this year. Burma's military leaders ousted the civilian government this February and have killed over 1,000 people in an effort to crush resistance. Western countries, including the U.S., have condemned the coup, but Beijing has taken a softer line, saying it prioritizes stability and will not interfere with Burma. During the visit, the two sides exchanged views on Burma's political landscape, as well as cooperation in combating the pandemic. While the visit was underway, China also announced a new trade route between the two countries. The route links two Chinese cities with Burma's Yangon. The plan would make it easier for China to trade with countries surrounding the Indian Ocean. The American Chamber of Commerce in China's Chengdu City has abruptly suspended its operations, the organization's officials said on Tuesday. They represent U.S. businesses in the region. Chinese authorities reportedly instructed it to stop operating within 48 hours. That's according to the South China Morning Post. The outlet says the group's website was down the same day. The reason? Maintenance. On Monday, the group notified its 300 member companies that it had to stop operations. It said it would no longer carry out any activities under its name in accordance with Chinese law. Their statement reportedly did not offer a specific reason. This isn't the first time that Chinese authorities have taken aim at American entities in Chengdu. Last year, China closed the city's U.S. consulate in retaliation for being expelled from its Houston consulate. At least 3 residential buildings collapsed in southwest China over the weekend due to a landslide. Locals blame the authorities for allowing the houses to be built in such a dangerous area.
A landslide sparked by heavy rain strikes Chengkou County of Chongqing City, China. The accident destroyed at least 3 homes in a township there over the weekend.
A lot of people heard horrible sounds. It seemed like something was yelling at the mountain across the river for a long time. Then the flooding started coming down. The trees on both sides of the mountain were washed away and the houses collapsed.
Some affected households said that fortunately, the landslide occurred during the day. Had it hit at night, the consequences could have been disastrous.
Fortunately, yesterday, it happened during the day. There was a canopy in the house. The sound was quite loud. When the stones from the back mountain broke off and hit the canopy, when they heard the noise, people quickly got out of their houses. The houses then collapsed due to the mudslide. Fortunately, people were fine. If it had been at night, people would have died.
On top of the destruction, details released by the media ignited anger among the victims. The report explained that authorities had allowed residents to build houses in the area, even though they had known for years that the risk of landslides was high.
The land behind the house is a very steep slope. The authorities didn't make any precautions. They surveyed the land before and said there would be a landslide, but they did nothing to prevent it.
What's more, the Chinese regime's media mouthpiece published another report, claiming local officials had persuaded the residents to leave the area and that because of their efforts, no one was hurt. Residents immediately rejected that retelling of the incident, calling it a fake report. They described another story. One resident told us that residents who had rushed out of their homes then urged others to get out too. That's when they called the authorities, but the buildings were destroyed right as they arrived.
One of China's largest property developing companies is deep in debt. What it owes amounts to more than the GDP of Finland, at some $300 billion. If the company goes bankrupt, it would send shockwaves through China's economy. And DiDi's Don Ma has more.
China's second largest property developing group, Evergrande, is in a debt crisis, and creditors are worried that the company won't be able to pay it off. Evergrande owes a whopping $300 billion in debt and contract liabilities. To put this number into perspective, $300 billion is more than Finland's GDP in 2020. The company has been trying to raise money by selling assets, but that's barely putting a dent in the debt. On Tuesday, the company warned of default risks if it doesn't sell more assets or renew loans. This debt is a result of Evergrande's highly risky business model. They will borrow loans to buy land, then develop and sell homes at lower margins for fast turnover. Evergrande would also sell homes before they are finished construction. But its debt situation has raised questions about whether it will have enough money to complete those projects. Many Chinese citizens have complained online that they have been waiting for months or even years for their purchased homes to finish construction. A China economist at Japanese financial holding company Nomura says Evergrande's huge balance sheet will have a real domino effect on China. Major companies like Evergrande are entangled in China's financial system. If anything were to happen to the firm, it would send shockwaves through the Chinese economy. There is speculation that Chinese authorities at different levels may step in to help with their debt. Shares of the company fell by close to 2.5% on Tuesday. Within this year, its stocks lost more than 70% of its value. Don Ma, NTD News.
Beijing is stepping up its limit on how many hours minors can spend playing online games. But gamers have something to say about the change. We look at how they are responding to the news.
Some young Chinese gamers are upset about Beijing's new rule. That is, no more than 3 hours of gaming per week for those under 18. A gamer in Beijing says he doesn't think the regulation makes any sense.
Although it aims to help teenagers, however, the less you get, the more curious you'll be.
He goes on to say that this isn't something authorities can control.
People, in the end, can always play on another account or buy accounts from adults.
Another gamer believes there's no need for Beijing's restriction.
Because the internet companies here are developing and gaming is part of it, I think if China resists it too much, It will restrain the development of talents.
Authorities argue the rule is necessary to stop the country's growing video game addiction. The regulation is also part of Beijing's efforts to tighten its grip on Chinese society, especially on key sectors like the tech industry. A Chinese professor says gamers will always find loopholes in the rules.
For example, account leasing, which means that adults rent accounts to young people, or modify mobile phones, or there will be human skin masks in the future. These are all possible. And in fact, what we see may be that parents themselves are willing to help children in the family unlock it as long as they have their permission.
Beijing's latest clampdown deals a major blow to the gaming industry. China is one of the world's biggest markets for video games. And gaming developers like NetEase and Bilibili saw their stock shares drop after the announcement.
Taiwan is taking an active stance toward the international stage. The island's president delivered a speech on Tuesday, offering support to other countries in the Indo-Pacific region amid aggression from Beijing.
The Indo-Pacific's emergence is also accompanied by newly developed tensions and systemic contradictions. The rise of a more assertive authoritarianism is the drive of such friction and poses the most serious challenge.
The speech was recorded during a virtual forum hosted in Taiwan. The dialogue focused on key trends and strategy over issues like geopolitics, economy, military, and security in the Asia-Pacific region. President Tsai Ing-wen said Taiwan is willing to work together with other nations to promote peace, security, and prosperity in the region.
Taiwan continues to strive to be part of the solution for an international community.
The former U.S. representative to the UN, Kelly Craft, also joined the forum, as well as 16 experts and officials from countries including Australia, France, India, and Japan.
Taiwan is committed to working with regional actors to ensure regional stability. We are willing to shoulder our share of burden, and we would not take our security partners' recovery for granted. While we don't seek military confrontation and hopes for peaceful, stable, and beneficial existence with our neighbors, we'll always defend our democracy and way of life.
President Tsai Ing-wen says Taiwan's high-tech industries, especially its microchip manufacturing companies, are an important part of a secure global supply chain and can protect key technology from abuse. Armed riot police descended on a metro station in Hong Kong Tuesday night, and officers broadcast warnings not to gather, trying to bar memorial services remembering the police's violence at the same site 2 years ago.
2 years from the 831 attack in Hong Kong's Prince Edward subway station, police once again were seen around the subway station on Tuesday. It's the second anniversary of the incident. Despite officers warning the public not to gather, many still carried on the tradition and laid white flowers at the site marking the event. At the same location 2 years ago, baton-wielding riot police stormed the station following hours of clashes with protesters. Police indiscriminately attacked passengers and pro-democracy protesters on the metro. Inside the station, police were pepper spraying people in carriages and beating them with batons. Many passengers were seen bleeding and cowering.
It's actually a very serious incident with the police's excessive use of force. But after this long, no police have been held responsible for this matter. After 2 years of searching, not even a single police officer can be identified.
Hong Kong police have not given a clear account of the whole incident and the casualties, but they appear to be taking some action now. On Tuesday, police arrested 2 men near the metro station, including one local reporter, and another was detained on suspicion of verbally criticizing an officer. And another, a Hong Kong district councillor who shot video of riot police storming the metro station 2 years ago, appears to have received a threatening letter with a blade tucked inside warning him not to talk about the incident. The letter he received reads, "Shut up about 831 to keep you and your family safe." The district councillor said in a Facebook post on Tuesday, "Do you people think that if I don't talk about it, people will forget about it? Between remembering and forgetting, I believe that people will hold the memory in their hearts.
China's economy and businesses suffered last month. Activity in factories slowed and the service sector also shrank. That's due to China's most recent Delta-driven outbreaks, as well as high raw material prices, slowing exports, and tighter measures on inflated property prices. According to reports on Tuesday, China's Economic Trends Index for manufacturing fell to 50.1 last month. That's just above the mark that separates growth from contraction. Services sector activity in China fell sharply due to the CCP virus-related restrictions, the first time since last year. Official data shows that sector's economic index fell below the 50-point mark in August. Among them, catering, transportation, accommodation, and entertainment industries were most affected. China's port recently resumed operations after it shut down for 2 weeks. But the closure has already strained global supply chains. Chinese ride-hailing giant DiDi has set up a union for its staff. Unions are rare in China, and it looks like this one will be backed by the state. NTD's Patrick Hayden has more.
China's biggest ride-hailing company, DiDi, has set up a union for its staff. That's according to Reuters sources.
The surprise unionization of the company after it's gone public will bring down the stock value.
Unions are extremely rare in the communist country, and even then are guided by a state union federation.
It will not be a normal union as in the West, which can have a highly adversarial relationship with management in order to improve workers' rights. It will be a union that answers first and foremost and only to the CCP.
The move comes as China's businesses are facing harsh crackdowns in many areas.
The CCP does not want large competitors like Jack Ma or other major corporations that are creating independent power bases from which the CCP or a particular leader like Xi Jinping in the CCP could be removed.
The CCP has carried out anti-competition probes, fines and policies that are billed to protect workers and protect consumer rights. State media have already criticised DiDi for paying its drivers unfairly, and regulators launched an investigation into the company straight after its $4.4 billion US stock market listing. DiDi did not respond to NTD for comment. Another big tech firm in China, e-commerce powerhouse JD.com, also established a union this week. DiDi and JD.com are believed to be the biggest tech firms to date to have established company-wide unions in China. Patrick Hayden, NTD News.
And it looks like the Chinese regime wants more influence over Alibaba parent company Ant Group. For the first time, state-backed Chinese firms are set to take a sizable stake in a key Ant Group asset. It seems the idea is to establish a personal credit scoring company.
Chinese fintech giant Ant Group is giving state-backed firms stakes in the company for the first time. That's according to Reuters sources, who say that the partnership will be to establish a personal credit scoring firm, which would be a joint venture. The move would likely give the Chinese Communist Party access to Ant's data treasure trove of over 1 billion users. That could revive Ant's IPO that was halted by Chinese authorities just 2 days before its stock market debut in November. The IPO highlighted the outsized role of Ant and e-commerce affiliate Alibaba in China. That triggered a regulatory clampdown on the business empire of billionaire founder Jack Ma. The result was a restructuring order for Ant, a record $2.75 billion fine for Alibaba for antitrust violation, and a near 3-month disappearance of Ma from public view. Under the plan, 3 state-backed companies in tourism, finance, and tech would jointly own the credit scoring venture with Ant Group. Colin Fredrickson, NTD News.
A South Korean battery manufacturer is ready to spend big bucks on a new factory in China. Called SK Innovation, its planned investment totals over $1 billion. The move comes amid increasing demand for electric vehicles. Automakers around the world are making more electric vehicles to observe environmental regulations, and China is currently one of the largest markets out there. The South Korean company makes electric car batteries for some of the industry's biggest names, like Ford, Volkswagen, and Hyundai. It also has plans to expand in the U.S., Hungary, China, and South Korea. And that's all for today's China in Focus. But before you go, we have a short announcement. We have our premiere at 9:30 p.m. from Monday to Saturday on TV and our YouTube channel. NTD is available on many platforms, including cable TV, satellite, and over-the-air TV across the U.S., and it continues to grow. Please check out ntd.com/TV. Type in your zip code to find all the ways you can watch our show. That's ntd.com/TV. Thanks for watching and see you next time.